dealing with difficult. Now, first and foremost, I would just like to welcome each and every one of you. Ahmed, thank you for joining us. Chika, I see you. Thank you. Chinedu, thank you. Gospel, Dr. Augustine, thank you. Nancy, thank you. Nancy is joining us from Kenya. Thank you for joining. Tomisi, thank you for joining. Stella, thank you for joining. And we're expecting a whole lot of other persons to join us this evening as we talk about dealing with difficult bosses. Now, it's now for those that are joining us for the very first time. The Roundtable Talk is an experience sharing platform where we come here to share our experience. It's not an academic exercise. We don't come here to tell you 5 ways to avoid or 5 things to do or 10 things to do. No, we just come here to share our experiences, and we believe that as we share our experiences, you're able to glean certain dimensions or certain things that from it which will help you advance in life. So basically, we'll be talking to Ahmed today, and I believe Ahmed has some form of experience to share in dealing with difficult bosses. Now, before we go into that, I would like to talk about my own experience. Now, for me, I would say that once you have a difficult boss to deal with, it makes the even if every other person, even if the environment is friendly, the environment is nice, just for the fact that you have a difficult boss to deal with, it makes work terrible. I've been in that situation, and it's not something that anyone will ever appreciate. And I believe we all have our experiences to share. However, before we take a deep dive into speaking with Ahmed this evening, I want to just share certain facts I've gotten online from HuffPost. Says that over 75% of workplace says that their bad boss is the worst part of their workplace. 50% of employees who don't feel valued by their boss plan to look for another job in the next year. 65% of employees say they will take a new boss over a pay rise. 65% says they will take a new boss over a pay rise. That's how bad it can be. Now, 44% of employees say they've been verbally, emotionally, or physically abused by a supervisor in their career. Just recently, not quite long, I saw a video online. Just like few minutes ago, somebody just sent me a video of some guys, some supervisors beating up, I think, a lower staff or so thereabout. I think that should be in a workplace or so. I don't want to go into the details on all of that, but it's something that we see over and over and over again, over and over and over again. So, we'll be over to you, Ahmed. Ahmed, good evening. Let's welcome Ahmed. Just type 111 in the chat box. Let's welcome Ahmed to the forum. Ahmed, you're welcome. Ahmed, are you there?
Yes, good evening, Jonah. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. You're welcome, Ahmed. Thank you for joining us. So basically, I have a couple of questions that I'll be asking you this evening, and I believe as I ask those questions, you will be able to share your experience and tell us what I think at the end of the day, basically, what we want to learn is how best we can manage difficult bosses. Is it for us to quit the job? Are there ways to managing difficult bosses? Fine, the pay might be good, and sometimes because of family, you just still want to stay on that job. Is that the way to go? Like you said, like what I just mentioned, 65% of employees will rather change their boss rather than take a pay rise. So, what are your thoughts? So, Ahmed, let's hear from you. Just give us a brief introduction of yourself, or rather, let me give a brief introduction of who Ahmed is. Or Ahmed, just it's up to you. Say something about yourself.
No, I mean, maybe you should go ahead, and if there are any
Okay.
things I need to add, then I'll add.
Ahmed is a friend for several years, and at some point we worked together. And currently, he's the past director, one of the people and culture director for Cham Dairies. He's also the past director, operational director for Teach for Nigeria. He's an expert and a consultant in the non-profit sector, and he has done a whole lot of work in that space. Welcome, Ahmed, and I believe you've been working with people all your life, and I know you have a lot to share. So we are passing the ball into your court. So go ahead. So I think maybe I start by asking you the first question, which will be, uh, sorry, which will be what should one look out for in a boss. Now, literally, when you join an organization, right, if you've had a bad experience, right, the first thing you want to know is, like for me, the last interview I remember that I attended, right, when I wanted to change jobs was the question I asked them during that interview was, what's your organizational culture? For me, the culture of that organization was paramount to me, much more than how much I was going to be paid. So that was one of the questions I asked them. Will I be comfortable working here? Will I don't want to wake up each morning and my heart is skipping because I want to go to work. No, that's not what I want for myself. Not at all. Do you get? So that was one of my concerns. So the first question for you, Ahmed, this evening is, what should one look out for in a boss? Thank you.
All right, Jonah, thank you so much. You said quite a lot about me. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm saying hello to everybody who has taken time to join us on this call. So what should we look for in a boss? I always tell people that I coach that it starts from your interview. When you are applying for a job, always ask about the interview process. And sometimes they will tell you what that process is, which includes who you will be speaking to at what time. And for most of that process, you get to find out that either the last person you'll be speaking to will be the head of the unit you'll be joining, the or somebody who is close to the role or you will be reporting to. So a lot of times, I always say start from that area, and that gives you an idea of who you will be working with in the future or what you'll be stepping into. It gives you a sense, and that's where you can use at the end of the interview, like, do you have any questions for us, to be able to probe further on the person that you're speaking with, whom you may be reporting to. If you've missed that opportunity, I think the next best thing is to begin to find somebody who you feel that is more knowledgeable than you. Someone once said that we are made up of two things: the books we've read and the people we've met, which means that we definitely don't really get far ahead uh, beyond the experiences we have with the people we meet. So to be successful in life, you need to find people who align to your personal values, right? You need to find a boss who aligns to your personal values. But this thing is like a checklist that might not really exist. However, uh, uh, your personal values determine what is important to you, right? Your area for growth and development. That's the beginning of the point. If you boss that you report to is not able to offer you certain things, or if you if he's not able to offer you certain things, then obviously maybe it's time for you to take his job. But if that doesn't happen, uh, uh, the first thing is to start with your values and what your career growth is. Even though your boss may not be in position to support you, right? You can speak with your boss to help connect you with somebody else in the organization who can support your career growth towards your own growth and personal development. And the grow you grow at your workplace is directly proportional to your personal growth and development. So for you to succeed at work, you must be able to find somebody who would channel where that experience you need is coming from. So your values, your where you are headed in terms of your career growth, your vision, your plan, what the next 2 years will be like for you. If there is an appraisal point check, what are the areas you need to close out before your next appraisal? Um, so for these things to happen, it means there must be some chemistry with the boss that you are working with, which means your ability to understand this boss, your ability to lead 360. So when I say lead 360, leadership is 360. So it means you lead those who are beneath you, you lead those who are your peers, which is 180, then you lead your boss, which is 360. You have to be able to lead your boss. One easy way is to understand what their love language is. Two, Um, your boss must have the same ethical values as you. I mean, that's one major barrier that I've seen. Um, your boss should be able to hold you accountable, so he needs to be your accountability partner. Your boss needs to also be able to understand where you're coming from. Your boss should be able to give you uh, relevant or adequate feedback uh, with the job that you're doing. Your boss should be professional. Um, I've led many people, and I think one of the things that I like that I do is I work hard and I play hard as well. So I think a mixture of both will be fantastic, uh, because it's not. I mean, I can imagine. I've had bosses who are work hard, work hard. We won't leave the office until, you know, 10 a.m., 11, sorry, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., you know. I remember a particular story, one of the most difficult boss that I had. She would keep us up until so late. I remember one particular night, we go home so late, and the vigilante men refused to let us get into the street because we we came in late. We had to go back to the office and sleep in the office. Uh, I mean, so yeah, I mean, so a boss really understands you, your person, and understand. And this understanding cannot happen unless there's communication, right? So you need also to be able to communicate with your boss, and your boss needs to be able to communicate with you. Uh, in terms of leadership as well, your boss should be able to lead. Uh, it depends on what the scenario is. I've had bosses who didn't have an idea of what I was doing, right? But they still led me, right? Right? They still led me towards the common goal. And that's because they understand leadership in itself. And I think that's where I learned one of the definitions of leadership about leading people, which is basically getting people to do what you want their own way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ahmed. You've said a lot in this few minutes now, and I'm trying to process what you've just said. Now, there's a question for you here, which before we take that question, because in my head I'm thinking, right? How do you? The question was, what should you look out for in a boss? Now, like you said, it's not like it's you can't literally make a list and expect to get a boss that will fit into that list. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So whoever your boss is somebody you just need to accept and learn to work with. And you're talking about love language, ethical values, accountability partner, which definitely will lead us to the next question, which will be if you find yourself in a situation whereby there is a mismatch between what you stand for and who your boss is. How do you now manage your boss? I know you've had a couple of experiences. So the question now will be: have you ever had to deal? How have you had to deal with these bosses in quotes
Okay.
that you had in the past? Then while you're doing that, immediately there's a question in the chat box which I'll need you to answer, whichever you want to answer first. Over to you, please.
Okay. So I always tell people the first thing is ask yourself this question: are you the problem? Right? Are you the problem? Because a lot of time when because you eventually grow and then you also become a boss. Uh, and the thing is that I'm not saying that there are no difficult bosses. I mean, I've had to say one of my boss was a was a demon, but the point is, you need to ask yourself that first question: are you the problem? Right? Um, uh, am I the only person who gets treated this way? Right? You know, uh, am I being sampled out and, being punished separately? If you are able to answer no to all these questions, then it's most likely that you have a difficult boss. Secondly, you need to understand that with growth, it requires resilience, right? You cannot grow without resilience. One of the major functions of your boss is to push you beyond boundaries, right? That's the only way you can supersede them. And that process of pushing people beyond boundaries is always moving them out of their comfort zone. So
Absolutely.
you also need to understand this comfort zone that is here. What am I getting out of it, right? So this pain, uh, would it yield to something, right? If the answer now is no, right, which means that, oh, I submitted a proposal, she didn't even look at it and she tore it into pieces, right, and stuff like that. You then know, okay, this person is just being difficult. Um, I always say the first thing to do is study this person, right? Study this person. Um, Anything can be studied, including human beings, right? Study this boss, know what makes them tick, know when. I mean, so for instance, I had a boss that I found out that never go to her when she comes in the morning, right? She is not always in a good mood in the morning. If you're sharing information that requires something for her to make a decision, you are not going to get it. The best time to have a conversation with her, if you want something for approval, is roughly between 3:30 and 4 p.m., right? 3:30 and 4 p.m. So in my to-do list every day, I always leave that calendar open for her, even though, I don't have anything to do with her. Because anytime that I believe that I need something from her and I look at the time, I use that time. If it's not going to come in at that time, I move it to the next day, right? So, and that's because, she herself too had her own issues, right? Sometimes people take out their frustration on you as a result of their experiences somewhere, and they just need to transfer that negative energy. A lot of time it's even unconscious, right? But irrespective of whether it's unconscious or not, if it's unjustified, then it's unjustified. Um, so the reason is to understand how people behave, right? And why they behave, basically. So you need to know your boss's personality, what makes them tick. You need to know the areas where, um, that usually is like a flashpoint and stuff they don't want to hear. Uh, it may look like you are now walking 2 steps ahead. Initially, yes. That's the first thing you need to do. So you have to be 2 steps ahead, you know. Um, for instance, I can give you an example. So I had a particular boss. I know that if I sent in the draft of the document, the first draft, she's going to tell me I should go and redraft it, right? And usually move things around. So I will not always go to her with one draft. I give her 2 drafts, right? So the thing is that, you see, it's psychological. The moment you give me 2 options, right, I am forced to tell you one is better than the other, right? I am forced to tell you one is better than the other, subconsciously, right? Because if I tell you both of them are wrong, I can then ask you what is different from the first one and the other. And then it's either you are going to lie to my face that you read it completely. So that was how I prepared for that boss. So it was a track record. I had a track record of the only person who was sending draft documents and not have too many pens on it. I mean, most people come out from the office after they met the boss, and behind the door, they are staring at the document like it's an obituary. Because there's change this up and down, and you're asking yourself, after doing this about 5 times, what is the difference now with this document and what I had initially?
First and second.
Yes, because eventually, right, you still come back to where you are, And two, I got to a point where I stopped asking. Like, I stopped asking for suggestions, right? I will, ahead of her, ask, what can I do for you? on this item. They tell me specifically, right? As against being, waiting for your boss to tell you what to do, right? The idea that I am telling you what I need ahead of time keeps me in this realm of expectation that is not high. It's the thing they say about deadlines, which is one of the things I learned the hard way. The closer your submission of whatever the task is to the deadline, the higher the expectation, right? And once you exceed the deadline, the expectation for that job is extremely high, right? So it has to be super good if you fall in that bracket. So the lesson I always tell people is that if you have a deadline, if it takes you 1 week, don't say 1 week, say 10 days, right? Say 10 days. Finish it between 10 days, between that 7 days, and then turn it in, right? So you have room to say, go back and do this and go back and do that, right? And then the conversation and the communication strategy you have is more comfortable, right? There's an agreement of understanding as to where we are going. But if it exceeds the deadline, there's already a disagreement as to where we are going. It's a failure foundation that people need to walk away from. Now, these examples are given may not be peculiar with everybody, right? And each boss would have a different way you would approach them. I mean, because people are different and personalities are different. Some it could be, getting better info might be the solution, agreeing to what the timelines and objectives are, understanding your KPI with clarity, and sharing this KPI in writing with your boss where it's documented. Share reports when necessary. Don't wait for redundancy. Don't wait, another good example is you make yourself scarce, right? Make yourself scarce. Like there was a particular time I would just leave my suit, my jacket on my seat. I would leave my jacket on my seat. And when I come in, and then move somewhere else to go and work. And sometimes I would even go home. And my boss would think that I'm still in the office. But the point is, make yourself scarce, because sometimes, right? I had a particular boss, because my desk was very close to our office, and she usually have these brain waves, like spontaneous brain waves. So she opens the door and just looks who is there. I mean, I have a quick meeting. Come in quickly, just 5 minutes. And we're going to this meeting for 2 hours, right? And I spent 2 hours on something that might not be in my KPI. And at the end of the day, no matter what, I still have to deliver. Another thing, as a result of that, I learned is being able to tell your boss no based on what is important, right, to you, right? And if they insist, ensure that you get them to tell you why this item is more important than the item in front of you, right? That understanding is what you need to have should something go wrong, right? Because there's clarity between you and the boss that says, I've had bosses who would say, lie outrightly, and tell you, no, we never had this conversation. And that's why it's good to write emails, right? And emails in the sense that when you have just a brief meeting with anybody, which was a skill I had to learn, it doesn't matter, your colleague, your boss, external meeting, as you get into the car, it doesn't have to be lengthy. You say, thank you for meeting with me. As a result of our conversation, here are just the major highlights, right? Highlights from your side is 1, 2, 3. Highlights from my side is 1, 2, 3. Thank you. I look forward to getting this sealed. I look forward to getting this done with you. Bam, send it. Nobody can take that away from you. That's if you have a boss that would deny, like, outrightly, right? If you do not have that kind of boss, just seek for their understanding and then just move on. So for different bosses, you may have to adopt um,
Different
dif-
strategies.
different strategies, right? And it starts with just understanding that boss. Who is this person that I'm working with? Is it a psychopath? Is he a sadist? Is this person just a joker? Is this boss incompetent? Right? Right? Is this boss incompetent? Is this boss just a wicked person sent from hell to?
Ahmed, sorry to cut you there. I would like you to tackle the questions we have in the chat box. The first one
Okay.
is, once you have identified such person at the interview, remember when you were talking about
Yeah.
yeah. So what type of question do you ask to probe as a culture check?
Yes. So it's very simple, right? Um, you're speaking to this person, and this person will say, introducing himself is the head of marketing, and you're applying as a marketing assistant or a marketing manager. One question you can ask is, what simple, what are your values? Um, uh, has your values changed since you joined the organization?
So are
Uh,
you referring to organizational values in this context or
no, this person's value,
oh, great.
this person's value.
Mhm.
Um, how long have you worked for XYZ organization and why are you still here? Right? You get that's another question you can ask. You can ask, um, what is your understanding of um, a particular, skill that is required for that role that you're applying or for that organization that you're applying, what he understands. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule about it, right? Ask questions that are meaningful. Please don't ask, ridiculous questions, but ask questions meaningful. If there are more than one person in the room, direct your conversation to that person. Another thing I always advise during the interview as well is that do your homework, right? They give you a call. Okay, so you've moved from stage one to stage two. You are going to be speaking with certain people at the desk. Ask who and who would you be speaking with. Google them. I mean, we're in the 21st century. Google them, um, read a little bit about them, look at their LinkedIn profile, um, observe it, right? Uh, remember, the interview process is not to determine whether you can, it's not to determine whether you can work for the organization. It's also if you want to work for the organization. So it's a two-way street, right? Right. That way, I've seen it was this particular experience. This particular gentleman went for an interview, and there was somebody in. He was the stun neck, so he decided to use the restroom. He went to the restroom and realized that the restroom was messy. Right. He just came out and just said that he was not going to pursue the interview anymore because for him, if the organization cannot take care of its toilet, there's no way it can take care of its employees, right? You know, the toilet is one of the most important places that you should, you know, look after, especially in terms of comfort. So if I cannot comfortably use restroom here, I have to cross the road to go to Chicken Republic, then obviously this is not the kind of place I want to work at. So you have to have that kind of mentality as well, right? Remember, you are the author of your own journey,
Sure.
and you need to know what you want, right? You need to understand what you want, and based on what you want, probe, ask questions, right? As long as it's within the ramification of why you want to work there, your own person, and what's in it for you and the organization.
All right, great, fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, value alignment. Now, one thing you said critically that I picked out from what from it is, what has your value changed since you joined the organization? Absolutely. For me, I believe that now I have always been of the opinion that the values of an organization can actually impact on a nation, and that I was in my last class or two classes ago. I was in a class, and that was actually proven. I'm not going to go into that now, but I think if the organization has been able to impact you and your value system has changed, then that should reflect their culture. Am I correct, Ahmed?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's you, people usually don't, like you said, people usually don't want to ask what's the culture of the organization,
Yes.
and ask what's the culture of the organization, what's the culture. For instance, do I have to come in and say good morning, sir, ma, or is it first name basis? And you'll be shocked that, I mean, I had a particular friend who came in from the UK, and she was working with one of the big fours of consulting, and she understood what the culture was in the UK with first name basis. Introduction video, first name basis. But she got into the office, and her first day is saw the senior consultant and said, "Good morning, James. It's Mr. James." so you can have cultural shock, right? Cultural shock. There are always cultural shock
Now,
because
I wanted to hold that thought there, right? Because I'm coming to that. But before we dive into that, let's look at the next question. It says, at what point should one decide to just leave before it becomes a bad situation? I feel this lead to mental health issue. We've actually talked. You can actually look at one of our videos in the past. We've actually talked about mental health. But I just want you to tackle that question, answer that question.
oh, I mean, uh, there was something I was saying to somebody recently. I'm trying to see if I can remember. Um, um, uh, is about it's really about how you perceive these things, and I think is that, you know, you can have more than you have got because you can become more than you are. Unless you change how you are, you would always have what you have got, right? And true happiness is not contained in what you get, right? Happiness is contained in what you become in life and at work. So another way of saying this is that to travel is better than to arrive, right? If the journey is difficult, right, and it's beginning to look like something else, the destination is different, it may be time to rethink and recheck. One of the things I always say is that you should get into that moment, the moment you feel like, oh, I have to go to work again, you need to start asking yourself the question, is this the right place for me? Because it means something is happening. However, I always advise that leaving the job is not the first thing that you need to do, right? Explore other options like changing departments, or moving to another unit, or another location if possible, because that person can just be, you know, a pain in the neck. The rest of the organization might not be like that. Um, the other option, I mean, so this is Nigeria, it rarely works. If you have HR, you can actually report this boss. Uh, but I've had cases where I've had people report their bosses and it still didn't turn out well, because begin to ask proof, evidence, and stuff. And then they begin to pile work on your head and ensure that you don't do extremely well. And then come back to say, you see, that's why I was blah, blah, blah. Um, but I think that's an option. You have to explore and plan. So what I always say, the moment you feel like, oh, I have to go to work again, it means you need to start planning your exit. Planning your exit doesn't mean I'm like going today, I'm going to tender my resignation. It means that you need to think, where am I going? If I'm going to get a job, what is the thing that I need to acquire? Because everybody that's going to take you again is hoping that you are going to bring value, right,
Mm.
to the organization. So look at what you can accomplish within within the shortest possible time that can give you a push elsewhere or in another organization that you're working with. So think about where you want to go. A good example about somebody was that, so difficult boss, and we had conversations, and she decided she was going to leave. She was going to move to another nonprofit. And this nonprofit was a different nonprofit. They had health, they are more health related. And where she was working was more streamlined to education. And we said, okay, within what the organization is doing now, it's just something around health that she could have done. Because if that's where you're looking at, and she said, oh, there's been this mention about this project about helping stuff about in schools that is somehow health related. And I said, okay, fine, just champion that, right? So she championed it, executed the project within the shortest time possible, such that it became something that she used as a stepping stone to begin to approach the other nonprofit, that was in the health sector. So those are the kind of opportunities that I'm talking about, right? Now, if those opportunities don't exist, right, you need to prepare as well. So start job hunting, review your CV, begin to prepare, update your CV, update on training, and then begin to apply immediately. I believe if you have your CV cleaned out, if you understand the roles that you're applying for, right, and you do proper coaching to get you the job, I'm pretty sure that you'll be of value to any organization that you're going to. So plan your exit. There are cases where it is almost like, I can't take this, right? What I always say is that in the workplace, as much as possible, don't be emotional, right? As much as possible, do not be emotional. Keep it professional, right? In certain cases, where it's a sexual abuse and stuff, immediately file for a complaint, speak to anybody that you want to speak to. If you have to file a court case, file it, right? But anything other than that, plan your exit. Plan your exit, give it 1 month, 2 months to be able to leave the organization. Because you want to also leave well as much as possible, right? Your record may not remain with the man or the female boss, but your record will remain with the organization. And a lot of times, previous new organizations like to reach out to your organization and say, how was this person, right? So you want to also leave well, right? In a way that is like the company is losing, right? And then you are going to a place where you'll be more valued. So yes, the moment you feel like it's a mental health issue, it means you need to start planning your exit. Think critically about your exit. The faster you strategize, the sooner you can get out of that organization within 1 month. And I'm saying 1 month because most organizations require you to leave a 1 month notice or you pay in lieu. So strategize within that 1 month and see how you can kill it. And then move on to where, you'll be better valued and accepted.
All right, thank you very much. Now, a couple of things you have raised. I don't want us to digress too much from the topic, which is dealing with difficult bosses, and I know that's a challenge for several persons. Now, and here's my take, right? You mentioned that you should be able to tell your boss no. uh, Trust me, that will not sit with every boss. It might come across as a lot of things. So my question is, at that point, what do you do?
Yes, which is why I said be 2 steps ahead, right? You have to play the game. You have to play it like chess. You have to be 2 steps ahead. Don't play it like draft. Don't play it like draft or snake and ladder. You have to play it like chess. You have to be 2 steps ahead. 2 steps ahead. The first step is that you know your onions. Like you know your shit.
Mm.
Nobody can take it away from you. 2, you have done your homework. Make sure you do your homework. Always do your homework. And what I always say is this, like, work is not the place to get work done, right? Before you get to work, plan for work. Don't just dress up, put on your clothes, your shoes, drive. On your way to drive, you are listening to Bolu and, Olamide. But the point is, plan I'm not saying you should not listen to music, please. I love music too. I mean, music, this is one of the things that I would mention. You need to be able to meditate and relax, and music is what I do because some bosses drive you crazy. So plan, work. Don't get to work and then
Okay.
begin to plan.
All right, let's flip it now. Now, you said something which is something I practice, and some persons, like you ask the question, the first thing you need to ask is, or rather you said something, the first thing you need to ask is, am I
Are
the
you the
problem?
problem? Yes, yes.
Now, this is what I did recently. I had two persons working with me, or one person working with me, and I literally plunged her into the ocean. Now, I did that consciously because I know that in the next 365 days, I will not be there to lead. I want you to take over. And for you to take over, right, you need to learn the rudiments. Now, that will come across, or literally come across, it comes across, like you said, to most employees as being difficult. So, where do we actually draw the line? Because that's what most people see. Sometimes your boss might not literally be difficult in quotes, but because of his style of leadership, or maybe what he's trying to achieve through you, he is seemingly difficult. So how do you now identify, or how do you balance it?
Yeah. Um, so if you report to this person, means this person sees your does your appraisal, right? Meaning that in one of your appraisals, maybe they have said areas for improvement, right? That's one way you can take it. When you look at your areas for improvement, right, and the tasks that you are doing are not flowing in that direction, that's when you can also draw a line. Two, I think that a very worst case scenario is that from like one that I've had is she worked for this organization to become the executive assistant, uh, and she was told that she would, attach data management with it. But there was this particular case where, aside being the executive assistant, she was going to the market to buy pepper, tomato, and it moved gradually into going to do laundry. Um, there were some times she spent half of the day shopping house items for her boss. And, the conversation she had was simply, I don't see how buying you tomatoes would help me become a better person. And the reason is because I can buy tomatoes on my own, right? I need you to give me something, right, that will challenge me towards where I want to be. And this is where I want to be, A, B, C, D, right? So the thing is that you also, like I said, you need to understand that, for growth to occur, there must be some sort of resilience. And resilience only come when you are being pushed beyond your boundaries, right? You need to know if that's the boundary that you are going, right? Because what makes you better today is that you exceed the expectations, or what makes you better tomorrow is knowing that you have exceeded the expectations of today. It's the only way you can break your world record of over and over, exceeding it. And it takes you twice as hard. The point is, you need to be willing to work twice as hard, right? Um, so, like I said, knowing where you are going to, where does this lead to? You know what? I mean, I've had people say, I took my JD to her and, she said yes, but there's somewhere in the JD that says, I don't know how they put it. I've forgotten how they put it. Other tax as assigned. Some people have in their offer letter after all the one,
Yeah,
two,
that's
three things and
your
say,
responsibility. What you have to do is not limited to, it's actually beyond it.
yeah, yeah, other tax as assigned. I mean, so
Mhm.
if your boss tells you that that's yes, but we said other tax assigned, you can insist that this is where you are going and this doesn't align. You suggest that this can be issued to somebody else, or he should kindly help you understand how this is going to be meaningful to where you're going. You need to be able to say it in a more respectable way. Don't be arrogant, you know. And I learned it from one of my bosses. Very, you know.
But, but Ahmed, let's be very, very factual here. Let's be
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
A lot of offices
Mhm,
you resume. Now, I don't want to mention names, but
mhm,
there's a point I moved from one unit to another unit,
mhm,
and I think my boss kind of liked me, and
mhm.
that likeness translated into the first thing was, you know what? I need lunch. Go get me lunch. And I went with my colleague. I was like, is this how it works here? He said, welcome to the club. Seriously? He said,
uh,
you get now
yeah,
what I'm saying is at that point in time, you tell your boss no, because that's not going to add value to me. That's what you're saying, right?
yes. So,
Trust
which
me,
is why I'm saying, which
leads to
so
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You need to understand your boss, right? And if
Mm,
buying lunch, like if buying lunch will put my boss in a good mood, right? It means that when I bring the
mhm,
lunch, that's when I ask for his approval on certain things. So I would weigh the options. If I do this,
mm,
what's the return on investment for me? If I notice
mm,
that there will be no return on investment, like I said, just make yourself scarce, right? I mean, if the office is, you have different working spaces, don't always work on your seat every time. I've learned not to do that. Don't always be sitting on that seat. Like I said, I will come to work and then I'll take off my suit and just put it on the seat. The person will just come and say, okay, Ahmed came in today. He say, yes, okay, okay. Tell him I want to see him. If I don't get a direct call saying you want to see me, I'm not going to show up, right? Because I'll tell you I'm in a meeting, or I have this particular to-do list that you gave me and I needed to do it immediately, right?
okay. It's getting interesting, Ahmed. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I have Gospel here. Gospel is a security professional with over 28 years experience. I'm very certain that he has some experience to share. Once Gospel is done talking, we'll look at the questions we have. There are some exciting questions here in the chat box. I'd like us to look at it. Then I'll come back to the questions I have for you. So, Gospel, are you there? Can you just share from your experience, please?
Hi, Jonah. Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's been very interesting. Ahmed, thanks for your insight. Great wisdom so far. Very, very nice. For me, it's been in about 24 years that I've been in this industry. I've seen different kind of bosses, difficult ones, nice ones, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Basically, like you said, Ahmed, we need to be 2 steps ahead. You need to understand who your boss is. And for me, from the very beginning, it was a challenge working with difficult bosses because it shatters you psychologically. And then the more it shatters you, the more mistakes you tend to make because you are not in your right frame of mind. And sometimes you become more confused and very, very unhappy. Okay, but from the early stages, it was a challenge. There was this particular book I read that helped me change a lot of things, and that's by Nicola Machiavelli, that's titled The Mafia Manager.
Manager.
So when I read The Mafia Manager, I read another book by Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power. Okay, so these 2 books
Absolutely.
helped me. They helped me so much in understanding different kinds of bosses and how to deal with them. But all in all, you said something quite interesting. These difficult bosses, they help us become resilient, and then they bring out the best in us at the end of the day. Because if I look at who I am today, I discovered that these difficult bosses helped me some way or the other to become who I am today. And I'm managing a lot of people. I've managed people up to 2020 staff working under me. And when I left that organization, the feedback I got was, you are a father, you are a boss, you are a friend, you are a brother, you are everything. And these guys, these difficult bosses I worked with, when I put my experiences together with the good bosses I worked with, I became a better manager of people. I became a better leader. I work with people with empathy. I understand when to listen to a gossip and understand that someone is trying to undo someone. I understand when to do my investigations. I understand when to not listen to what someone is telling me or not act on what someone is telling me. So basically, when I look at, and then coincidentally, I've also worked in a lot of organizations. If I count the number of companies I've worked in all these years, I would call myself a career prostitute. So you see, but it has built me up. So as not to waste further time, these difficult bosses, when we meet them, we need to try to go deeper into ourselves and become more resilient and bring out the wisdom in us and find the grace to be able to work with them and meet their needs. That way it builds us up, because we have a lot ahead of us as future captains of industries, CEOs, and definitely leaders. We've got people that will be vulnerable under us. We need to learn to take the right decisions, and experience matters. Without these kind of bosses, we won't have the level of experience we should have. So experience is not what you buy in the market. I discovered you can't buy it with money. But when you work with these kind of people, generally they build you up. So for me, if I have a younger colleague that is telling me, okay, I'm facing these challenges with this boss that is like Hitler, I'm just going to tell him, yes, I'm going to tell him, calm down, and then just take it one day at a time, and then be wise. Don't pull out, don't resign. Quitters don't win, winners don't quit. So I wouldn't say, okay, look for a way out and quit, but just look for a way to manage this person and work with him, because it's going to build you up. So generally for me, it's been experience all the way with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it has made me a better leader today. I manage almost all kinds of people. I can even manage a lunatic. So because I understand, I've also worked with some bosses who you could call lunatics, but you know, there's a kind of music you play for a lunatic and he starts dancing and enjoying the rhythm. So basically, Jonah, that's what has been experienced, and then it has helped me to become a better leader. So these bad bosses, sometimes they are put on our way to bring out the best in us and to build us up to be very, very experienced professionals.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gospel. Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think you captured a lot of things there. Now, Ahmed, let's quickly look at the question in the chat box. It says, thank you for your insights, Ahmed. A question. You mentioned about being professional earlier. I'd like to ask if being humane is advised, emotional intelligence, compassion, empathy, etc. For example, I used to ask my former boss about her personal life from time to time, e.g. her family, and I think that got to her in a way. A colleague also said one time that an office is not a place to make friends. So what do you advise?
Okay, so what I'm going to say is that what's the culture of the organization? I mean, you walk into most organizations, the culture is that everybody's like a family, right? You walk into another organization, the culture is like everything is KPI. They don't even care if you don't come to work, but deliver your results. It doesn't matter if you're having headache, you broke your hand, you are running stomach. Their own is results. And so the first thing is, what's the culture of the organization? If it supports this process, this thing, this family, and finding out, being this close and forming friends. If the culture doesn't exist, there's nothing wrong in trying it and seeing where it goes, right? But you are trying it, trying to see how this turns out, right? Why I'm saying this is because you are the author of your journey, right? You know where you are going, right? If you understand your boss and you know that if you do this particular act, right, it will set you up for success. It will set you up for success. Then I think you should do it. If you do this act and you believe or you foresee that it will set you up for failure, then desist from it. I got to a point in my life where I always thought that, my job is to make my boss look good. I mean, you get that also from the mafia manager. That's one of the things that you do for your boss, right? To make your boss look good, even though they don't deserve it. Because someday you too become a boss too. And the truth is that, like they say, I won't hire somebody that cannot be better than me, right? Otherwise, I'll have to do the job myself. So technically, I'm looking for people who are equally as good as I am or better than me, so that when I assign the task to them, they would deliver, right? So what I would say is this: what's the culture of the organization? Would this lead you to a better result? Because sometimes um, it may be that you are pushing beyond boundaries in terms of relationship. Maybe that boss is not that kind of person. And usually it may be one-sided. So you may have try to find out what the problem was and just say, please take out, God will answer your prayers and stuff like that, or I have a friend who does this and so that he can help you for this particular problem. And then you now had a problem. You are now hoping that it will be reciprocal. Trust me, it may not. And please don't take it the wrong way. Never take it the wrong way. Don't take it the wrong way. You did what you did because you wanted to do it. It's that simple. So finally, I don't think that I've worked in very hostile environments, and I finally found a way to break the ice, right? I always try to break the ice because I can't thrive in chaos, right? I can't thrive in chaos as much as possible. I always try to break the ice. So I've made many friends from places. I've made more friends than enemies from the places I've worked. I don't think there's any organization that I've not worked that I've had more friends than enemies, right? So I still say that you be friendly, be compassionate, be empathetic, use your emotional intelligence very well, and be the best version of yourself, such that if anything happens, you know that you put your best foot forward, and that's it. And nobody can take that away from you. I think that's my response to it. You have to test it. You have to test it. And then again, I think one of the things that I've always done is always read the handwriting on the wall. After working in a place for a very long time, you study the environment, you begin to see specific patterns that when this happened, this is what happens. When this happened, this is what happens. You get to understand the behavioral science around everybody in the organization. And it's your responsibility to do that, right? It's your responsibility to do that. Nobody has you not to not make a difference, right? And one way you can make a difference is basically understanding everybody that you're working with. There's no way you can work with people and not understand who they are, Like he said, even though he's a madman, you have to understand which type of music would make him dance. It requires extra effort. It requires communication. So I'd always say your communication needs to be strong. How you strike up conversations and how you engage this person is very important. I had a boss that just said, you know what? One thing I like about you is because I can have just conversations with you. It got so bad that when we're now hiring people for her, it was more about, I want to be able, if I cannot have conversation with this guy, I'm not going to hire this person. So you need to move towards that point where you can have conversations and you're emotional intelligent. You are not, even though the thing is vexing you, you are in control. You're not raising your voice. You are asking the right question and just pushing, gently for what you want or what you deserve, and I think that would really help out. That would be my response to that question.
All right, thank you very much, Ahmed. I think Dr. Um, Wilze has a question. Over to you, Dr. Austin.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. My very good friend, Juna. Ahmed has really done. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go on.
Ahmed has really done a very good job today. And so I really would not be just to add to what he already said. I think what I want to add is just in a way of contributing that when we talk about difficult bosses, we should really look at the spectrum, because when you say difficult bosses, it's like putting all the various types of difficult bosses together. I know very well that Ahmed dealt, painted scenarios that somehow, covered each and every one of them, including the idiots, the one he's termed lunatic, So yes, we have some bosses that are idiots. We have some that are dictators. We have some that are abusers. We have some that are procrastinators, and we have some that are micromanagers. And if you look at this spectrum, you would understand that, they all graduate towards a different thing. For instance, the abuser is a no-no. If you are working in an abusive environment, how do you deal with that? In some cases, if the organization does not have policies in place to check that, you may just have to, working out from such environment.
Yeah.
I've seen people go depressed because they are working with an abuser. And so if you are not protected in such an environment, then the only way out is to probably, look for a way out. We have dictators. You can work with dictators. For instance, if you apply some of the tips given by Ahmed, you should be able to work with dictators. I had a boss who was a dictator, who would not want. In fact, imagine the boss asking you, "I don't pay you to think for me." Imagine a boss who does not appreciate being proactive. Okay. And so what do? You have to understand, just like Ahmed said, I will always keep making reference to what he said because he has done a very good job so far. And so then imagine working with an idiot. Okay. That it is even easier to work with an idiot than an abuser. Of course, the person is just an idiot. And then you find a way around it. Sometimes you realize that an idiot may just be somebody you can easily push their ego. You tell them beautiful things about themselves and they will let you have your way. Yeah, there are several ways and all that. But I think, why am I giving these various types of difficult bosses? I think one of the commonest one around us, we have the procrastinator who will not get anything done. And then, of course, that when for instance, you want to pitch something and you get something to their table and they leave it and it's affecting everybody. Okay. We have bosses like that. And at the end of the day, they will come back to blame you if things does not work out. So there are people like that. So I think the point here is we should, just like Ahmed rightly said, we should, study the kind of bosses we have and then adapt, in the best way possible to that kind of environment. But I'd like to really talk much more about the micro manager, because I think that is one of the commonest. When we say I have a difficult boss, I think that is one of the most commonest kind of boss we find in our climb. For instance, somebody who will keep breathing down your throat, delegate that would rather not want to do the work by themselves, ask you to submit report at every point in time, give you some, some of the what's the word now? Some of the signs, okay, to know if somebody is micromanaging. I think that is majorly the problem we usually have with our difficult bosses. They are difficult to work with because of this overburden, this micromanaging and all of that. And so so I believe most of the things that Ahmed said would really work best in that situation, although he has also gone ahead to, paint a bigger picture. I'll give you this example. I once had a boss who wanted to frustrate my life. And remember, I'm a teacher. I teach in a university, okay? So the way we have bosses is slightly different, and I've worked in other organizations before, so I understand this. And I walked up to him one day, we're together, and I said, "Sir, I would like to have a word with you." He said, "Okay." I said, "Sir, I understand. We both understand that you're trying to frustrate my life. We both understand. We are together here. This conversation is between you and I, okay? I don't warrant the way you are treating me." Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go on.
Okay. So I said, "But if you make me walk out from this particular role, I will make you my life research. I will study you, and anytime you make a mistake, I would publish it." You know, this was at the extreme.
Can you hear him? I think we lost him a bit there.
We've worked together again, not once, ever again. Now that is at the extreme. Not many people can do this.
Yeah,
And again, you have this in mind that that was a different environment, okay? Because of where I was coming from, I had led so many people, I'd been in groups and all that. So I had that balls, you know, I had that balls to walk up to him because of where I was coming from. So we really need to follow some of all those tips that Ahmed laid out, understand the people you are working with. So if you work with a micromanager and you are able to prove to them that you can actually do the job right, often, many times, you realize that it makes you a better, a better person. At the end of the day, it teaches you a whole lot of skills. You are able to give reports. You're able to follow through with keeping to deadlines, because sometimes they may give you realistic deadlines and all of that. So I really like to thank the organizer of this program, Jonah, and Ahmed, who has been doing a very good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Austin. Very, very valid contributions there. I think I appreciate the fact that you're able to define the spectrum. And if you ask me, you are absolutely right. Now, normally we just do this for an hour, but we're going to open up for questions and contributions now. If you have any, Faith, I thought I saw your hands up. Do you still want to ask a question? If you have any question, if you have any contribution, this is the time to do that. If you don't want to speak, you can just drop your question in the chat box. While
all right.
okay, go on.
I put down my hand because of time. Okay, I'll just make my contribution. Thank you very much, Ahmed, and everyone who has contributed. What I want to say is like, okay, talking about, I got a job once as a program officer, but in the end, she turned me to a PA. I couldn't make calls in her presence. Always, in fact, my job was like almost 24 hours. As long as she was awake, I had to be with her because the project was out of state, you know. In the end, it was just unbearable. But then on the other side, I have been a boss too to people. There was this case. Sometimes we call people difficult bosses when we ourselves are the problem. You know, I once ran a school. I had like some wonderful staff, but sometime I had but there was a particular case where this lady, it is when she's supposed to be teaching that she'll bring out her Bible, starts doing morning devotion and everything. And the children will be running around getting injured. I tried to call her to order a couple of times, but then it didn't work. Then there was another one that was not, her pronunciations were horrible. And, you know, you're teaching young children. And I said, okay, please, I have some videos. You can go home, watch them, try to improve. You know, call her, talk to her nicely, and then she felt insulted. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I have a difficult boss. When your boss just wants the best from you. The Bible talks about diligence. You know, I believe that no matter how horrible somebody is, if you put out your best, it will limit their level of terribleness. Let me just say it to you. You know, basically, that's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Faith. Like Ahmed said, and you just reiterated, was you knowing the job, knowing what to do your homework. If you're good at it, it becomes impossible for you to be boxed in a corner because then you are able to call the shots. Now, my final question. If you have any question, like I said, just put it in the chat box. It's our above. It's normally an hour program, and this is 13 minutes past the hour. So I'll just ask one final question. Now we'll be talking about difficult bosses. Now, on the flip side of things, we also have nice bosses. Now, in a situation whereby now Basi put up something on LinkedIn within the week and he said that here's the other side of the coin. Though he specifically said Nigerians, but I don't just want to say Nigerians. I think this cuts across. People abuse good people. He said Nigerians do abuse good people. So because Nigerians abuse good people, right? He said hence the reason some bosses will never act right, act nice, even if they want to. Now I wanted to talk about that. Is that true? Or because yes, we'll be talking about difficult bosses, and we've been able to glean some value from difficult bosses. You've heard gospel, you've heard Austin, you've also said so that it helps us build resilience. But sometimes you work in an environment and you just see your boss is just this very, very nice person, and over time, some people are nice, and all of a sudden, they don't just want to be nice anymore because of the experience. People just want to take advantage of them. Now, I really want to talk about that.
Yeah. People change as a result of the experiences they have, right? So if your boss constantly gets bad, incompetent people, there is a tendency that the mode of operandi will be of everybody who comes, that's the channel she's going to use, because she's not going to bother herself to want to find out whether you are competent or not, because already she's made up her mind that everybody goes through this pipeline, which is why you have to show that I am good at this, right? Then another scenario is it's like Nigerian police. People say that the moment you don't know your right, you're in trouble with the Nigerian police, because half of the thing they're asking you, if you know you're right, they won't ask you. It's as a result of you, when they ask you a question, as a result of you showing that you don't know your rights, then people take advantage of you. So yeah, so sometimes people take advantage of good bosses. And then over time, this becomes modus operandi, and such that the boss changes and say, look, it's not value for me anymore. I'm just going to take everybody, whether you're a square or triangle, I'll force all of you through this round hole. If you like it or not, don't. That is how I'm going to operate. But I know with those people, the good side of it is that somewhere exists that version, right? You need to understand what that version is, what that version requires, right? Trust me, all our bosses that liked us, right? If you had a boss that liked you, it's simply because you are able to solve this problem, right? You are able to solve this problem. You are value to him. I know that there are some people who are value to their bosses and their bosses take advantage of them too, which is why I say it's like that Nigerian police case, right? The thing is that you need to know your worth, right? If you don't know your worth, nobody else will treat you in a way. They will treat you worthless because you don't know your worth, right? If you understand your worth, right? In the same light, people will praise you in that same way. So you need to know your worth as well. You need to, and your worth can be where you are headed as well. What do I want to be in the next 2 years, right? And then you constantly being in that situation where it's a known conversation, It's not like, because I've had cases where the boss says, so you are scheming, you want to go for this training, because you want to take my job. You are now, because you are good at this and this now, you want to take my job and stuff like that. And I mean, so like I said, you have to play, because technically this person, you report to this person. Even if you find out that you are now in a place where your boss's boss likes you, right? You have to be aware of the politics of managing that as well, because, right, it may be a big problem for you. So you have to manage that process such that, yes, even though I'm close to the chairman, so don't go to your boss and say, in fact, I was speaking with chairman yesterday. He was mentioning some things about changing this product line, and your boss will be looking at you and you say, so
I'm thinking that should be our next conversation. Office politics. Sincerely, do you
yeah.
know, like off camera, something I never wanted to meddle into, right? But I have been made to believe that you don't have a choice. Basically, do you get? Ahmed, sorry, I might have to cut you short there. We have some comments I need to. Nancy, you have a question. I would really like to take Nancy, then I will wrap up in the next few minutes. Yeah, Nancy, I'd like to take you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much for the invitation. And this is the most interesting topic I've ever come across. And it is there are so many areas which has not been touched. I have so much that I could have wanted to discuss, but because of time, let me just narrow down to one. This one about academics. You will find that in junior positions, young people might be thriving to climb up the ladder, but because bosses have been there for quite some time, and maybe they were given in terms of they were given position in terms of merit, not because of academic. And but when these young guys or young junior people come with their academic papers, they will never give them a chance to grow. Especially, I've seen they will diverge them not to attend meetings, trainings, so that they cannot surpass them. This has been a very big problem I've seen around, and I could urge bosses, including those who are here, don't buy your juniors to grow. It is their time, it is their right. I don't know how other jurisdictions take such issues like that, because especially in private sectors, some people don't feel they have a right to make a recommendation for the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Ahmed, do you have anything you want to add to that? Bosses that impede growth. Well,
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, so officially they may impede your growth, but what I always tell people is that you are the author of your journey, right? Seek your personal growth and development. You know, they say when preparation meets opportunity, it inevitably becomes success, right? The fact that you denied me opportunity here doesn't mean I cannot go and find it elsewhere, such that if the opportunity comes, you are prepared to take advantage of that opportunity. Yes, it may be difficult because you may have to pay for your training, whereas you could have gotten it for free. But the thing is that you have to find your way like water, like always just find your way, be fluid. I don't always believe that somebody is in control of your destiny. Your destiny is in your hand. And like I said, to travel is better than to arrive. What do you want to see on that journey? Look for it. If you're traveling from here to point A and you sleep on that journey, right? You've missed out on the experience. When you arrive, you have nothing to say, right? But when you are awake and alive and you see every single thing that happens from point A to point B, you have a lot to say when you arrive. And that is why to travel is better than to arrive. So seek your development, right? Irrespective of the challenges that you have.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been an exciting conversation with Ahmed Alaga, and I'll just read a few comments here and wrap up. Um, yes, we have. Thank you, Gospel. You said it all. That was quite interesting. The delivery was awesome. Okay. All right, Nancy, you asked your question already. Thank you so much, Faith. Abuse. Experiencing an abuse and experiencing any kind of difficult boss does not excuse those difficult persons. Absolutely. Most
Yep.
subordinates do not want to be disciplined. When you try to make them improve, they see you as a difficult boss. True. Good day, the host, the wonderful mentors. Okay, thank you very much, Chi. I once had a boss who resorted to raining courses just because some of his expectations concerning the job was not met. In that scenario, I didn't wait at all. I simply quit the job. Should bosses resort to measures? No, they shouldn't
No,
actually. When it comes
no.
to abuse, physical abuse,
Any emotional,
abuse, I think it's
any
time to
form.
take a walk, actually. Yes, any form of abuse because it leads to mental issues, leads to depression. Now, from my experience, it got to a point where you start making mistakes. Now, I do a lot of presentations. Now, it got to a point whereby I started stammering. I could not even deliver when it comes to presentations. Now, and that was not me. At that point in time, you just need to take a walk. Actually, take a walk. Now, Taiwo is saying, I agree with that, Collins. How did you intend to discipline your subordinate? Well, Collins, you have a question. There's a question for you to answer there. Fantastic forum. I wish to be taken up again. I've learned a lot. All right. We always do this once every month. Okay. Okay, Taiwo, do you want to say something? I appreciate the effort of making things different, but in that way, will you do that? It will not affect others and their feelings. Taiwo, do you want to say something? Okay, all right. Okay, yes, all right. Go ahead quickly. We'll take you last, and then I'll wrap up. Taiwo, are you there? Okay, all right. Um, Taiwo, you said yes. We're actually waiting for you to say to make your comments. Or are you having difficulty speaking up or connecting? All right, that brings us to the end of. You can drop your comments. How can you make things different? Okay, that's your question. How can you make things different? I would have loved you to speak up. I'm trying to understand the context actually. Ahmed, did you get that?
Well, I guess maybe he's trying to say, amidst all these situations, how do you differentiate maybe between, like you said, where because I know he said somewhere such that it doesn't affect others, right? Um, 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 I'm not really sure, but what I'm guessing here now is that because there are situations maybe when you do a little bit pushback, it then becomes everybody's fault.
Mm,
Um, um, I think in those cases, you clearly need to take into consideration your actions, which is why I said do not be emotional, be emotional intelligent. What I was trying to say that one boss that I learned a lot from, one difficult boss that I learned a lot from, when she's reprimanding you, right? She never screams.
mm.
It's like a very quiet conversation. She talks gently and softly. In fact, when I'm being put in that situation, for me, it's the most nerve-wracking because somebody is telling you something that is hitting you hard and is saying it.
A very
Look, in such a quiet, calm manner. It's like they're pouring you cold water, but it's burning you. So, as much as possible, uh, don't lose your emotion. Be emotional intelligent. Consider your actions. Remember, you are also very important. You need to understand how this affects you and always plan. And I think my final thought that I always say to people, the moment you get into an organization, the moment you get your job, plan your exit. plan
Oh,
your exit.
all right. I wouldn't take that as your final word. The moment you get into an organization, plan your exit. Fantastic. Well, I don't know who that is for, but I think after I worked 7 years somewhere, I told myself, do you know what? I'm not going to stay that long anywhere anymore. So once I get in and look at the environment, if it favors me, because a professor, is it in WBC on LinkedIn said, forget that stuff where they tell you that workplace is family. That the day they fire you, remember, I know. So you don't get to fire you, you know. They get to fire you when you're not meeting those KPIs. So from me to you, I want to say thank you very much for coming on board this evening. It's been an exciting conversation. I think this is the longest we've had since we started a roundtable talk with Jojo, and we actually want to take this further. I think Ahmed, you have one or two things to say concerning a coaching and training session that we have after this. So we'll just take our time to listen to Ahmed too on
Okay.
his his speech. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so you know how we always set alarm for everything. So you set alarm for, you know, when we want to wake up. We set an alarm for when we want to read to prepare for exams or professional exams. We set an alarm for when we are doing things like watching our weights. We set an alarm technically to go on lunch. But the thing is that we don't set an alarm for our personal growth and development. And this is a common phenomenon, especially in this part of our world, where we are so self-sufficient, right? Right? You know, there are some people who have the reasons why you learn things from others because people have made the mistakes before, and so you don't need to make those mistakes because you're not learning from them. And one of the things Jonah and I are doing is that we are putting together training sessions to guide and support people towards growth and towards their personal growth and development and their career as well. You can think of it as a tool for life. There's this video that I, was circulating, a lot of this. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a gymnastic lady. She was doing this somersaulting, and she was doing the backflip very well until, she went off the mattress, and luckily her coach was there to catch her because she knew where she was going, and he knew she was going to slam the ground, and that may have been the end of her career, and he caught her at the right time. Like that athlete, we all need coaches and training in our life. There's the presumption that you don't attend these things and that you are good at what you are doing. No, I don't think so. Most of these things don't come genetically. I know and maybe some people have it, but it doesn't work that way. So we're putting together a training and a coaching session to help people navigate personal development and career coaching, which will help people. So it's a hand-holding process to support you and address your immediate concerns. And also an opportunity to do a deep dive into yourself and to how you can manage your situations in not just your work, but your career. So we're going to be sharing this link shortly, in the chat box. So anybody who is interested in these trainings for personal development and career coaching, should please sign up. We are going to be doing it at a fee, but for participants of this seminar, we will be giving a 50% discount. The thing is, we would have loved not to charge money for this. Jonah and I have been in the business for more than 15 years. But we've realized that a lot of the time, this process requires our one-on-one conversations with anybody who joins. And that comes as a value as well. So we want people who are, like-minded and who understand what they need to get to where they want to be. And those are the people we want to work with. And believe those people understand where they want to go. So it will be at a very substantial fee. Like I said, it's 50%. And anybody who is interested can join in, and we'll send additional details to you all. Trust me, it's not anybody who knows me knows that I've always given, even when I say it's 50% discount, it's like almost free. But the thing is that we want people to make a commitment because it's a 4 weeks program. And we will not want to start and then people start dropping out. We want people to put a stick in the ground. And we believe if people pay for it, they will stay through the entire coaching process. Because it's painful for me to start something and down the line, you don't show up on the calls, you say you are busy, you have to go and do this, you have to go and do that. But we want you to put a stick in the ground and make a commitment. And that's why we're asking you to pay a fee. Anyway, additional information should be said. So if you're interested, please just sign up and we'll get back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ahmed. You've heard it all. We're actually committed to doing this to improve lives, to improve you. And trust me, you will not regret walking the path with us. Like he has always said, you are the author of your own journey. And put in another way, I would say in life, forge your path. In life, you just need to forge your path. Now, from me to you, I want to say thank you for coming on board this evening. Thank you for joining us once again on the Roundtable Talk. It's a monthly program whereby we just come around to share experiences. We get experts to share experiences with us. And next month, we'll be talking about something else. Kindly watch out for this space. Follow us on social media pages, and you always get updated with the next topic and next date. There's a link in the chat box. Kindly just register, and you get more details about the training and coaching session. Thank you very much, and from me to you, have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Wings were made to fly. Touch the sky, reach for the stars, do the impossible. And there's nothing that can ever bring me down. I'm one dream away from everything I